Welcome. In this explainer, we are breaking down the really crucial and sometimes pretty surprising interactions with Adderall. Let's dive right in.
So here's a thought that might not have even crossed your mind, but it is so important. The things you take every single day, from other prescriptions to stuff you grab off the shelf, can completely change how Adderall works in your body. And, understanding this stuff is absolutely key to your safety.
Okay, first things first, let's start with the absolute basics. What exactly is Adderall? Well, it's a combination of two stimulants, amphetamine and dextroamphetamine. Doctors prescribe it to help manage the symptoms of ADHD and also a sleep disorder called narcolepsy.
Now, you might be taking the immediate release version, which works right away, or maybe the extended release, the XR version. They're timed differently, for sure, but here's the thing you absolutely have to know when it comes to interactions. They are exactly the same. Everything we're about to cover applies to both.
All right, let's jump into our first and honestly our most critical section, the absolute red flags. These are the situations where taking Adderall is a definite no-go. And there's really no gray area here. For some people with certain health histories, the risks just completely outweigh any benefits. It's a hard no, and doctors will look for totally different options.
So as you can see here, the main reasons to avoid it are pretty serious. It makes sense, right? Adderall is a stimulant, so it can make conditions like heart disease, high blood pressure, or an overactive thyroid even worse. It can also raise the pressure in your eye, which is really dangerous if you have glaucoma.
Okay, and this is the big one. This is probably the most critical warning of all. If you take Adderall with a class of antidepressants called MAOIs, or even within 2 weeks of stopping them, it can cause a spike in blood pressure that is so severe it can actually be life-threatening. This one is completely non-negotiable. So now that we've gone through those absolute never-ever scenarios, let's talk about some of the things many of us run into in our day-to-day lives. Let's start with alcohol. The official advice on this is super clear and simple. It's best to just avoid it. When you mix a stimulant like Adderall with a depressant like alcohol, you're sending your body some seriously confusing signals. So why is this combo so risky? Well, besides the obvious strain on your heart, Adderall has this really sneaky effect. It can actually mask how drunk you feel. And that's incredibly dangerous because you might not realize just how intoxicated you are, which could lead you to drink way more than is safe.
Okay, this next one is a huge deal because a lot of people taking Adderall are also taking an antidepressant. So this is a really common area where interactions can happen.
As you can see, a few of the major types of antidepressants, when you take them with Adderall, can raise the risk of a rare but very serious condition called serotonin syndrome. Basically, it's what happens when you get too much serotonin in your brain. It can lead to things like confusion, agitation, even muscle twitching.
And now for the question I'm sure is on everyone's mind. What about your morning coffee, right? You take your medication, then you immediately reach for that cup of coffee, or maybe a tea or a soda. Is that okay?
The most important thing to remember here is pretty simple. Adderall is a stimulant and caffeine is a stimulant. When you put them together, it's like turning the volume way up on the side effects of both. You might feel extra anxious or jittery or notice your heart is racing. Your doctor will probably tell you to keep an eye on your caffeine intake or maybe limit it.
All right, let's get into some of the interactions that are a little less obvious. These are the ones that can so easily fly under the radar, but they are still incredibly important to know about. Yeah, this one often comes as a real surprise. We tend to think of vitamins and herbal supplements as, totally harmless. But they are active substances, and they can definitely interact with prescription meds.
So, for instance, St. John's wort and tryptophan can actually bump up that risk of serotonin syndrome we just talked about. And here's a really interesting one. Vitamin C. It can actually make your body absorb less Adderall, so the medication becomes less effective. The usual advice is to just try to take your vitamin C at least an hour before or after your Adderall dose.
Here's another one that might surprise you. Those everyday things you might take for heartburn or an upset stomach, they can have a really big impact on your Adderall. And how this works is kind of counterintuitive. These medicines work by lowering the acid in your stomach. Well, that change can actually cause your body to absorb more Adderall than it's supposed to. And that, of course, can crank up both the good effects and the bad side effects.
And finally, it's so important to remember that Adderall doesn't just interact with other substances, it interacts with your own body and your own health conditions. For some people, it can increase seizure risk, it can make circulation problems worse, and it can sometimes exacerbate tics.
Whew, okay.
that was a lot of information. So what do you do with all of this? What are the actual takeaways? Let's move to our final section and put together a simple, actionable checklist to keep you safe.
So here it is. This is your path to safety. And if you look closely, it all boils down to one simple thing: open and honest communication. When you talk to your doctor, you have to tell them everything. They need the whole picture, every prescription, every vitamin, every supplement, your habits, all of it. From there, just make sure you read the info your pharmacist gives you and never, ever add anything new without talking to your doctor first.
And that's really the bottom line, isn't it? Your health is a team sport, a partnership between you and your doctor. And the single most powerful tool you have to prevent a dangerous interaction is a complete, totally honest list of everything you take. Your doctor can only protect you from the dangers they know about. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.